All right, let's just start with the title of this explainer because it really makes you stop and think. With monsters, you make love. What does that even mean? Well, we're about to find out, diving into the incredible work of author Marco Orr. And boom, right out of the gate, the author hits us with this unbelievable paradox. He says, at the peak of my own violence, I was chosen to help treat the violence of other men. I mean, how does that even happen? At his absolute worst, he's tasked with helping other men with their worst. It's a heck of a story, and that's the journey we're going to get into right now.
Okay, first up, the monster in the mirror. Let's really dig into what he means by that. This monster he says he saw staring right back at him. So just try to picture this for a second. The author, Marco, is working in a hostel for violent criminals. And at the exact same time, he's realizing the absolute destruction he's causing in his own personal relationships. The big difference, though? His violence was invisible. And get this, in a move that just perfectly captures this whole situation, he becomes the very first man to voluntarily check himself into a domestic violence prevention center. But not for hitting anyone, for emotional violence.
And that brings us to the core idea here. Emotional violence. You know, we're not talking about fists or broken bones. This is the psychological stuff. The harm you can do with words, with mind games, or, and this is a big one, with just crushing silence. The author has this incredible phrase for it, violence as transparent as water. You can't see it, but man, you can absolutely feel yourself drowning in it. And this difference is so important to grasp. Think about it. Physical violence, it's visible, right? It leaves marks. It becomes a statistic. You can report it to the police. But emotional violence, it's a ghost. It's totally invisible. It leaves these deep psychological scars that nobody else sees. It never ends up in a police report. It's just hidden. And that's exactly why he argues this kind of hidden violence can be even more damaging. He says it sows the greatest destruction in the soul. I mean, think about it. The wounds to your spirit, to your self-worth, to your basic ability to trust another human being, those can run so much deeper and last a lifetime, way longer than a broken bone. Okay, so we've met the monster, but the big question is, where did it come from? That's what this next part is all about, the violence of secrets. So yeah, where do these monsters actually come from? For the author, it wasn't one single event. It was born from this devastating family secret that started when he was just a little kid.
Okay, so check this out. When Marco is just 4 years old, his mother dies from a really aggressive cancer. But they don't tell him. For 2 whole years, his family tells him she just went on a long trip. Can you imagine being that little boy? Just 4, then 5 years old, waiting for your mom to come home. And then, when he's 6, his dad finally sits him down and says it. Maman est morte, Marco. Mom is dead, Marco. And this is so critical to his whole story. He says the real root of his violence, his pain, wasn't his mother's death. It was something else, and he uses this Hebrew word to describe it. Hastara. It means hiding or concealment. That act of hiding the truth from him for 2 years, that became the engine for everything that came later. And this is the absolute core of his breakthrough. He says it so clearly. The thing that hurt me most was not my mother's death. It was the concealment of her death. It wasn't just the grief, it was the lie that was piled on top of the grief. It was like a trauma on top of a trauma, and it completely shattered his trust in reality itself. And the consequences of that one secret, they just rippled out and affected everything. It created this deep distrust in the world around him, a constant feeling of abandonment and a fear of being left. He learned a terrible lesson. Love isn't real, it's temporary. And all that grief he couldn't process, it didn't just go away. It festered, and it turned into rage. So he built this wall inside himself to hide all of it, a pattern that would wreck his relationships for years and years. So, if you've built your own prison, how in the world do you get out? For him, it meant one thing: shattering the old masculinity.
He had to tear down everything he thought it meant to be a man. What he figured out was that this wound from his childhood had spawned a whole set of really messed up beliefs. He calls them his conceptions about manhood. These were like the toxic rulebook he was living by, the very things that were poisoning his relationships and making real connection impossible. And what were these conceptions he had to just totally shatter? Well, things like a man must always be in charge, never ask for help, or the idea that love and fighting are just two sides of the same coin. And that classic move of blaming someone else, she's also to blame, so he didn't have to take responsibility. The belief that a man's mission in life is more important than his relationship, and maybe the biggest one of all, that showing weakness is the ultimate failure for a man. So to fight all that, he had to adopt this completely new, kind of radical mantra. It sounds like a total contradiction, but here it is. Be weak, man, be strong. And that's the whole key to his change. He realized true strength wasn't about being dominant. It was about having the courage to actually be vulnerable. So what does this journey actually look like? Well, for him, it boiled down to these 4 steps. Step 1, stop blaming everyone else and take 100% responsibility. Step 2, look under the hood of your anger and find the pain that's hiding there. Step 3, learn how to actually talk about your real feelings and fears. And step 4, the hardest one, choose to be vulnerable, even when it feels absolutely terrifying. And all of this whole incredible journey leads him to a totally new way of thinking about love. And it finally answers that question from the title, How to Love a Monster. His entire view of what a relationship is just flipped. He used to see it as a battlefield, a place where you had to defend your ego, hide any weakness, and try to control the other person. But he started to see it as a safe harbor, a place where you can actually be vulnerable. And that vulnerability is what lets you heal together. So that brings us to the big finale, the main takeaway of his whole journey. How do you actually defeat the monsters that are inside you? And here's the beautiful, surprising answer. You don't. You don't defeat them, you transform them. As he puts it, a good relationship is turning monsters into butterflies together. Wow. It's not about winning a fight against your own darkness. It's about finding a relationship so safe that you can bring that darkness into the light and together turn it into something beautiful. You have to do it together. And that really leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? His entire story kicked off because of a secret, something that was hidden. It makes you wonder, what secrets, big or small, are hiding in our own lives? What parts of our stories have been quietly shaping us all along?